Hello guys, welcome to another episode of Learn with Gege. Today we are going to be creating this application called the Balloon Pop game. Stay with me as I show you through the interface before we head into creating a new one. So this is the interface of our game, and as soon as you click on the start button, balloons are supposed to start dropping, and your task is to ensure that no balloon escapes to the ground. As you pop each balloon, your scores increase and the difficulty level of the game will increase when you get to a certain score. If any balloon falls to the ground, the game comes to an end and you can restart by clicking on the restart button.
Like, subscribe, and share this video across to other kids out there. Thank you. So guys, we are going to begin creating the application now, and as usual the first thing to do is to click on the new project on MIT App Inventor interface. And once you click on the new project, the next thing we are required to do is to give it a name, and we are going to be calling it Balloon Pop Game. Balloon Pop Game. Once we've given it a name, the next thing is for us to hit the OK button and allow the interface to load. It is fully loaded, but we do not have any component right now. The next thing we are going to be doing is to bring up all the necessary components for our application, and the very first component I am going to be pulling out is the label, and all you need to do is to drag it onto the screen, drop it, and go ahead, rename it. We are going to call it score. We hit the OK button, and then let's also change the text property. We'll also call it score, and then you notice that on the screen it has changed. We can as well make it bold. We can increase the font size of the score label, and we can even give it a background color. Let's say we want it visible, we give it a cyan, and then we can as well manipulate the height, the width, and so many other properties, but right now we are okay with this. So all you are going to be doing is to repeat the same procedure, drag and drop all other components onto the screen. We have the following components, and you just need to follow along and ensure that you have all of them as well. We have the score label, which was the very first one we brought onto the screen. I have another label called the level, and that is going to be switching from one level to the next as the game progresses. And then we have another component called the canvas. If you look at it, every time I select any particular component, if you look at the screen interface, you will see that that is also highlighted. We have the canvas component, which is going to be the area on your screen, on your phone screen, where your game is going to be actually played. And then we have these very important components called the image sprite 1, sprite 2, sprite 3. They are actually the balloons that we are going to be working with. And then we have the horizontal component. We have the start button, which is going to, as you know, trigger the game. We also have another label called the game over, and then we have the restart button. We have the clock 1 component, we have the sound component, we have the player 1 component, and so on. And then very important, I couldn't show you this step, but for you to have this game successfully, all you need to do is to download a PNG image of a real balloon and then upload it. For you to see that procedure, all you need to do is you click on this upload file, and then once you have that image on your computer, you click on choose file and select that image from wherever it is located on your computer and hit the OK button. But right now, since I don't need that, I'm going to click on cancel. So very quickly, let's do a rundown of every component that we have on our screen. Let's look at the properties so that you are fully carried along. Very fast, we are going to the label called level, and I'm starting from the background color. I decided to make it green. I made it bold. The font size, I left it at default 14, and then the height is automatic, the width is automatic, the text property is level 1 with a column, so that as the level progresses you will see it on your screen, and every other property I left it as default. The score label, I decided to make it bold. The font size, I made it 25 because I want it to be very visible, and then the height and width property, I left it as default automatic. The text property, I set it to score column, and then I put a 0 so that will be visible at the beginning of your game, that your score is 0. Every other property I left it at default. The canvas, let's quickly look at the canvas property. The background color, I decided to leave it as gray. If you do not want the gray, you can click here and select any other color of your choice, but I want gray. Background image, you can bring up an image if you already have the image uploaded in your media, but I do not want an image for mine right now. And then the font size, I left it at 14. The very important, the height, I decided to make it fill parent. You can decide to change it if you do not want that, but right now I want it to fill parent. The width, I want it to also fill parent, and the line width, I left it as default. Paint color, I left it as black. Every other property are default, I have not changed them. Let's look at the image sprite 2. For image sprite 2, I left the height at 80 pixels, width 80 pixels. The picture is a balloon picture which you downloaded at the beginning of your application onto your computer, and you uploaded it right here in the media section. Okay, and I decided for it not to be visible at the beginning of my game. Last thing here is the X and the Y positions of the balloon, and if you pay close attention, these particular properties are going to determine the location of the balloon before it begins to drop down. So for image sprite 2, I decided to make it X position should be 100, Y position should be 128, and every other property for now is set to default. The heading is 270, interval is 100. These are default properties, which the speed 25. You can alter it as you like as time goes on. Okay, let's look at image sprite 1. Height 80, width is 80 pixels. The picture is also the same picture for a balloon, and then X this time around is 10, Y is 157. Heading is 270, interval is 100, the speed is still 25. Those are the same thing. The only difference between image sprite 1, 2, and 3 is basically the X and Y positions. So every other thing is the same for image sprite 3, but the X is 190, Y is 135. Heading is the same thing, the interval is the same thing, and the speed is also the same thing. The next very important component is my horizontal arrangement, and this component is important because it allows me to put 2 or more components inside it on the same level horizontally. Every time you are building an application that requires you to have 2 or more components on the same line, you are going to be needing this component called the horizontal arrangement. My start button, my game over, and my restart components are all embedded inside of this horizontal arrangement component. Okay, let's look at the properties. I left it as left is set to 1, align vertical is top 1. The background color, I decided to leave it as black. Height automatic, width automatic, image none, and it is set to visible. My start button, let's look at the properties. The background color is set to black. Font is bold because I want it to be very visible. The font size is default 14. The height and width, I left it at automatic. And then image, I don't want any image for it. and the text property is set to start. Every other thing I left them as default. My game over label, right now my game over label has properties no background color, the font is bold, the font size is 35 because I really want it to be visible when the game comes to an end. And then the height and weight I left them as automatic. The text property I changed it to game over with an exclamation mark. And then every other property I left them as default. Okay, the reason why you are not on the interface, you cannot see my game over right now, is simply because I have already decided to make it not visible at the beginning of my game. It doesn't make sense that as the game is starting, it's already displaying game over. If I want it to be visible, I will just click on this button and it becomes visible on the screen, as you can see. Okay, so the next component is the restart button, and here are the properties. The background color is default black, the font is set to bold, we increase the font size to 28, the height and width are all default automatic, and then the most important property we changed here is the text property, which we set to restart. Every other property is on default. Let's look at this component called the clock 1. For the clock 1, we are just going to check timer always fires, and then we uncheck the other one that says timer enabled because we do not want the timer to be enabled at the beginning of our game. And then the timer interval, we set it to 200 for now. And let's look at the sound. For sound property, we decided to make it minimum interval of 500. And then the player 1, we uncheck everything apart from the source. For the player 1 and the sound components, the reason why I have them is because I want my game to have a background music. If you are not interested in having a background music in your application, you can do away with these two components and your application will still function very well. Alright, this brings us to the end of everything concerning designing the interface for this application. As we continue in part 2, we are going to be looking at how to begin to code and make every component functional. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video across to other kids out there because we want everyone to be good at computer coding. Thank you.